Tales, sponsored by Harbro.
Welcome to Top Lines and Tails, the nation's favourite livestock podcast, and I hope you like my little intro there. I'm not convinced about it myself, but some of you seem to like it. I will admit this week that I am full of cold, so excuse me if I sound like I'm sniffling a little bit on this podcast. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Harbro, for their continued support with Top Lines and Tails. This week on Top Lines and Tails, we've got a well-known Kiwi from down there near Christchurch. Many of you will know him as Dan the Scan Man. It's Daniel Wheeler. Welcome to Top Lines and Tails.
Thank you very much, Andy. Pleasure to be here.
And down there, I'm early morning. You've been on the bevies yet? Is it that time of night, does it, or it's still a bit early?
Yeah, 9 o'clock at night. Haven't had a beer tonight, but 9 o'clock at night here.
It is permitted if you want to have one, but you're known in Scotland anyway for your scanning. You come up, well, you're a sheep scanner.
Sheep scanner, yep.
And
yep.
I say down there near Christchurch, I've actually got no idea exactly where you are, so just give us a little bit of idea of where you are and a potted history of Dan, really.
Yeah, so Don and my partner and I farm a small farm just out of Amberley, about 40 minutes north of Christchurch. We've been up here for 7 or 8 years now. So we're just 36 hectares, and then we lease. Most of my farming career has been around leasing small lifestyle blocks, 4 and 6 hectare lifestyle blocks, but recently we've taken over a 77 hectare farm plus some smaller lifestyle blocks. So we farm about 130 hectares in total. Yeah. So that's built over a long period of time to get to that point. We run all recorded ewes. Up until this year, we run 100% recorded ewes. This year, we have bought some Romneys in just as terminal option, just to build numbers. But we run, all our ewes are performance recorded. And once we farm the Romneys out and increase the recorded flock, we'll be back to 100% recorded ewes again. I've been scanning since 1992. Learned to scan in Scotland with Owen Wright, and have been scanning in New Zealand since 1992 and scanning in Scotland and New Zealand since 1998. Okay,
let's just wind back a little bit there. Your background, are you from farming background originally there, Dan?
Yeah, indirectly. Mum was a farmer's daughter, so my grandfather was a farmer. He was a dairy farmer and had a hill country farmer, and I've got an uncle who I'm quite close to, was a farmer. So farming's been sort of my passion since I was a kid. Dad was a builder. My father passed away quite young. I was only 19 when my father passed away. So I was at university. I studied agriculture at university. So it's, I've been there more or less.
We'll go through your maybe the scanning side of it in a minute. Let's just talk a little bit about the sheep that you run there. You said they're all recorded. Michael Blanche on his podcast said you're the world's biggest sheep nerd. And I know a few of those, to be fair. You've got some pretty tough competition. So there's quite a few out there doing similar. But you're very much into the figures. And you've got Finn ewes. Now, tell us a bit more about those, because I think they're quite an interest.
Yeah, so I've had Finns. So Finns were imported in New Zealand in the late 80s, and I first saw them when I was a student. Back then, the main KPI for farm profit was lambing percentage. That's changed over the years. The main KPI for farm profit in New Zealand now is stocking rate. But so the Finns to me look like a really good, easy way to lift lambing percentage. So in 1994, I invested in Finns and build a small flock up, starting with 8 ewes. And obviously at a 200% lambing, so you can turn 8 ewes into more than 8 ewes fairly quickly. So I worked my way up. 2003, I bought the Ag Research Finn flock, which was 100 ewes on top of the 90 ewes already owned. And so we went up to 200 odd ewes. And I've farmed them up at that level. I've now farmed them back down. So we still run about 85 ewes. So I probably own half the Finn ewes in New Zealand.
Half the Finn ewes in the world, possibly. I don't think there's any left in Finland. There's certainly none left in the UK, I don't think. They're a bit like
they're quite strong in America and quite strong in Finland.
Okay.
Yeah. So
for our listener, a bit like a Shetland or an Icelandic, I think. And I'm right in thinking that Dolly the clone sheep, was she not part Finn? Is that my research?
Yeah, she was a Finn Dorset. So the Finn Dorset is a quite a widely used breed in America, especially. A lot of research sheep are Finn Dorsets because they'll lamb out of season. They have lots of lambs. They're easy to look after. Nice and quiet sheep. So,
lots of lambs. And are we talking triplets and bottle feeding a lot of these bees? Is that what you like to do? Get out and bottle feed them all night?
So they do have a lot of lambs. A sort of 65 kilo ewe flock would scan fairly close to the 300% mark. I made a decision fairly early on in the piece that if the fin was ever going to be suited for New Zealand, then bottle raising was not the way to go. They had to be able to have lambs and raise them. So we do raise lambs, but we don't raise them ourselves. I've got a good friend nearby who has a automatic lamb milk machine for raising lambs. So any orphan lambs just get picked up, dropped off. He does a school run. So we just drop them off at the school bus when they're dropping kids at the school bus, and they go into the lambing book as dead. So we have put a lot of emphasis on making sure that sheep are fit for purpose.
Okay, that's great. I mean, that's just something I mean, we've all reared lambs. My listeners there will be biting their nails thinking, my God, having to bottle rear a whole load of lambs. And it is an expensive job when you put these on these buckets as well. The milk powder now with you as well, the same as us, will be an expensive job. But it's glad to see that they all get a turn anyway.
Yeah. So no, and look, we've got plenty of ewes that'll raise triplets successfully and regularly. So we have had a lot of work to do with the fins. They had poor feet and poor structure and poor growth. And we've still got a ways to go, but we've got some big, strong, growthy fins now as well. So
okay, you've developed those yourself, obviously through the numbers and such like. And I mean, in New Zealand way, everything lamb outside, easy care. Are you into that, or do yours need a bit more?
Yeah, we're relatively low input. There's a welfare balance to have, but we expect our ewes to be good enough to raise their own lambs. So we're tagging everything at birth. So I am around them every day, and occasionally twice a day. But anything that requires assistance or doesn't do the job properly is noted down and gone, which would be fairly common for, I think, a lot of recorded flocks here, or the norm for recorded flocks here.
Okay. And when we say recorded, you record all sorts of things again. I'm only picking up what I've heard in the past about you, that you like to record much more than just the weight gain there. So what other things? So it takes a lot of effort.
There's a lot of effort. I've been quite passionate about breeding low input sheep and reducing workload. And the irony of breeding low input sheep is it requires a lot of inputs to record the low input traits. So on top of obviously reproduction growth, we record eye muscle area or muscularity. Then we record DAG score, worm resistance, tail length, tail bareness, belly bareness, breech bareness. We've got a shedding flock, so we obviously record shedding or range of shedding. So quite a range of traits that we record. It gets to be quite a big long list.
It does. Just one thing I just picked up on there, dagging flock. Is that like clearing the shit off them, basically?
So DAG scores. So we at weaning time on ewes and lambs, and then again in the autumn on lambs, we record the DAG score. Fives completely daggy, zeros no dags, and we select very heavily for lack of dags. Currently on SIL or Improve, the New Zealand recording program, we're the second highest ranked flock for DAG score in the country.
But sure, if you're breeding sheep, okay, we're stopping the wool around their arse, I suppose, so shedding the wool around the back end so that they don't. Well, if you're breeding those, once you've got those sheep, you're not going to be dagging them anyway, are you? So that's a kind of self-recursive problem.
Yeah, it does. Although, ironically, shorn sheep can get dags because if they get the real skitters, it just sticks to the short wool. But yeah, so it's a multi-pronged approach. There's one stopping the dags forming, and then two's getting rid of the wool on the tail and down the beer end, so there's nothing for the wool to stick to.
Okay.
Ironically, my woolly sheep, my fins and my fin texels actually have a lower average dag score than my shedding sheep.
Really?
But part of that's because we do the DAG score on the ewes before the ewes shed. So, of course, once they shed, any dags that are on them fall out. So
yeah, okay, I get that. I mean, I've had Graham Gilmore on here. I don't know if you know Graham from Tatikeel in Australia with the Australian whites. Has the Australian white found its way into New Zealand these days?
There's been a few. We've tried Australian whites here. They haven't been much of a success in New Zealand at all, to be honest. They just haven't worked.
Okay.
Which is unfortunately because they looked like they were going to have plenty of promise, but in the end they just didn't work for us. I've tried a few Aussie white rams, and then last year I bought some Aussie white ewes, but of the 16 Aussie white ewes left that we bought this time last year, there's none left. So we haven't done 12 months with them here.
Okay. Just unlucky, or they don't like your climate, or I mean, we don't want to.
I don't think they like New Zealand's climate. They just haven't really fired anywhere in New Zealand. There's quite a number of people spend quite a bit of money on them. But yeah, they just haven't really fired. So, which is just one of those things in sheep breeding.
Sure. Let's go back to the low input there. Easy Care is a breed that I think is a breed in its own right now. Certainly, I've had people on my podcast here that are farming easy pedigree or purebred Easy Care sheep. So that is actually a breed. Just give me the makeup of an Easy Care, because obviously it comes from your part of the world.
So no, the Easy Care is a Welsh breed. We're low input. Yeah. So the shedding sheep I breed we called Meat Masters, which was based on the South African Meat Master breed standard. So it's effectively to be honest, they're composite sheep breeds, shedding sheep breeds that have low input traits. So my shedding flock is predominantly Texel based. Texel and fin based, obviously. All of my sheep have got fin in them. And then we've added Damara, Dorper, a little bit of Ex-Lana from the UK, and a little bit of Wiltshire just to peel the wool off them. But we're aiming for a Texel type of sheep, but with some extra fecundity from the fin. Okay, interesting.
And you mentioned the Dorper, that's a shedding sheep too, isn't it? There's big noise about Dorpers in various parts of the world. Is that hitting the straps with you as well?
Yeah, there's been Dorpers here for a long time. They've had their ups and downs. Probably like a lot of the Afro shedders, they struggle coming from a desert environment to a wet environment. But they've been in New Zealand now, probably since the mid-90s, and the New Zealand breeders have done a pretty good job at righting some wrongs in them, which is mostly around foot structure. Good Dorpers are really good sheep. I'm quite a fan of the Dorpers, and having said that, I've bought some Dorpers that haven't worked, but I've bought some Dorper rams that have worked really well. Yeah, I think that's probably the same with all breeds. You can easily buy a good one or a bad one.
Yeah, okay. The same, the Dorpers, for my listeners that don't know what a Dorper is, certainly the white ones with the black on the head look like they've had their head in a bucket of tar. They're a very striking looking sheep as well, and I think there's certainly some noises about getting those into UK, but the last time I looked at it, the guys were saying foot structure is the problem with them. We could stand the wet, certainly in Scotland. So you've done a bit about that, have you? That's good.
Yeah, we really discovered that while the Dorper brought a lot to the table, you didn't want too much Dorper. So it brings a really, really strong traits, but it brings a sting in its tail as well. So it's a matter of grabbing those strong traits without the sting in the tail. So our best ewes are around that quarter Dorper mark. So
just dwell on the sheep business a little bit more in New Zealand. A lot of your lamb gets shipped up to us, which is I always find ironic that the fact that most of the sheep in the UK get shipped out to France and Europe, and the rest of them go to the Hull market, and then we go in the supermarket and we get all your lambs coming up here. Can you? How the hell can that be? How the hell can that be work economically?
Quite easily. We can produce lambs here in New Zealand at a relatively low cost. We can ship them around the world at a relatively low cost. And we've got access to the British market, but more importantly, Britain's got access to that European market, which is a lot higher priced. So Britain can sell into that very high priced European market, and then we can put our product on the British shelves at a lower price, which keeps the British shopper happy.
Do you not see the irony in that? I've always seen the irony. Never mind, it's a model that works, and that's the way it goes.
It's a model that works. And look, the reverse of that was we could ship our lamb straight into Europe, but we'd probably get paid more for it. But then Britain would have to sell their British lamb in Britain, and they'll probably get paid less for it than they currently are. So.
Okay.
It's a model that works, yeah.
Okay, we won't go any further down that rabbit hole, I don't think. And you also have cattle there, I think, Daniel.
Yes.
Lings, and of course the Ling.
I've got Lings, yeah. So I'll arguably got the southernmost Ling herd. There is a small herd in Tasmania, Australia. So I have had Lings since 2002. And more importantly, probably I've got old style Lings because we were down to only a handful of animals left when I got them. And a couple of years after I got them, I managed to find a stash of imported semen that had been imported into New Zealand in 1976.
Oh, wow.
So about 150 straws. I think the oldest bull is a bull called Ling Highwayman, who was born in 1969.
That'll be
So
right at the
he
beginning,
is
right at the beginning of the breed. I've done a
right at
podcast
the
on the
beginning.
links.
He was a grandson of the foundation bulls.
Yeah.
So I've been chipping away using that old style semen. So I've got very old style lings, which is for me is really interesting. It gives a snapshot of what the breed looked like in the early 70s, but more importantly, it gives a contrast as to what they look like now and how much they've changed in that 50 odd years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
so it's quite a unique wee herd.
it's a unique breed, to be honest, Daniel. As I said, I did a
Yep.
podcast on it a while back. It's worth a listen if you haven't done it, where I talked to the guys and one of the young cads, obviously, that were involved in the original setup of this breed, crossing the Highland
Yep.
and the Shorthorn and back out again. And as I said, and then now they're a breed that's certainly on the up here in the UK, and it's nice to know they're getting all around the world. And you're getting a bit of interest from them down there. Is there more than you with the lynx?
No, I think as far as I know, I'm it. So no, hey, look, to be honest, I've kept them as a hobby. I've sold the odd bull now and again, but I don't really chase the bull sale. We just keep them, produce the calves. No, nice simple system where I AI all the cows each year and then put a backup bull out, which is one of the AI bred bull calves from the year before, and just chip away like that. So we've done quite well at it.
One of
Yeah.
bit of the smart money is going into the breed over here, and I won't mention too many names, but people putting money into that breed, they can see the writing on the wall that we're needing this lower input hill cow that
Yep.
can survive, and it's still native. And I'm not sure too many of them are AI in, but I mean, fly your flag because they probably want some of that old semen back if there might be an interest in it.
I've had a few inquiries. We've got quite a nice cow here. I've had a few inquiries for embryos there for her, and some semen, but unfortunately we can't export from New Zealand back to the UK. So we've only got one semen centre in New Zealand that'll take semen back to the UK, and they will only take semen back off bulls that they own. And so basically they only take dairy bulls back. So that's a bit of a shame.
You got to sell them a bull, and then they can do it from there. But you're sure you can work that around down your amount of means. But no, well, that's interesting to know that breed. Let's go on to what I introduced you as. That is a sheep scanner, and you mentioned you started scanning back in '92. Go back to the beginning there. How did you suddenly become a sheep scanner?
Day drinking, to be honest, was what kicked me off. I was doing my we would call it an OE in Britain, you'd call it a gap year. So I was doing my gap year. Was working in London. I was actually working as a cleaner.
As a cleaner?
I didn't really enjoy as a cleaner. Yeah, we were cleaning up movie sets after they were filming commercials and residential houses, and we would go in and clean the houses after it. So it was early morning work. So we'd done an overnight clean and finished at 10:30 in the morning, and we're all heading back to our hostel and stopped at the pub at 11 o'clock. And I headed out and left the pub middle of the afternoon and was walking home and walked into a job agent, just walked past a job agency, walked in looking for a farm job in the UK. And the chap there just said, "Oh, we've got this one just come in now. It's working for a sheep scanner in Scotland. Are you interested?" And yes, and a couple of phone calls, and the next morning I got up at 5 o'clock and caught a bus out of London and bussed up to Scotland and went scanning with Owen Wright and spent a month or 6 weeks scanning with him and got trained. And by the time I left, I'd bought a scanner and ended my gap year and was on a plane back home to start scanning.
Jesus. Okay, that's coincidence. And just tell us a bit about the scanner. I mean, you worked with Owen Wright. He would be fairly a well-known scanner, but you're in the early days of the scanning back then, though, aren't you, Daniel?
Yes, yeah. It seemed Owen seemed like he'd been scanning forever when I met him, but in actual fact, in '92 he'd only been scanning for 6 years. Right. But he was a great man, great storyteller, great teacher. So came back here. He scanned in New Zealand for a lot of years himself. Unfortunately, passed away in 2008. But so came back here, started scanning, and then in '98 I went back scanning in England, and then in 2000 I went back scanning in Scotland for Owen. Okay. And I was only originally going to go back for 4 or 5 years, but here we are, 25 years later.
Still doing it. I'll go on to just the numbers in a minute, because I think there's some quite incredible numbers that you've got there. But just tell us about sheep scanning. I mean, It's a dark art, for God's sake. I mean, those my listeners again that don't know, we're talking pregnancy scanning here, although you probably do back fat scanning as well, I guess. But it's a dark art. You stick your hand underneath, look at a TV, and go, "Yes, 1, 2, 3," and we all look at it, going, "How the hell does he see that?" So,
Hey.
is it a natural eye? Can anyone do it?
There's been a number of people that have tried to scan and haven't been able to, but yeah, I find it easy. But then again, I can't shear a sheep, and sheep shearers tell me that's once easy to do once you get the hang of it.
I was going to ask you that question.
Yeah. So yeah, like it is. There's quite a technique to it. There's the hand technique. You've got to be able to get an image on the screen. Then if you get the image on the screen, you've got to be able to read it. It can be both a very social job and a very anti-social job at the same time. So you've got to sort of have the right mental attitude towards it.
It's the speed that you do it. That's the thing. I mean, you're literally rattling 3 or 4 a minute of these things through. I mean, I could sit there and look for half an hour, maybe find something.
10 a minute I aim for.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So like a lot of that's down to good equipment, good scanning crates, things like that. So yeah, and there's a sort of a new wave of young scanners coming through now that in their late 20s, early 30s, and I was talking to someone the other day. Like I can remember the first year that Owen Wright scanned 3,000 sheep in a day. Got a phone call with pre-cell phone days. We got a phone call at lunchtime on the farm we were scanning at to say that Owen had cracked 1,500 by lunchtime and was going to try and do 3,200 by the end of the day. Jesus. And he did it, and that was the first time 3,000 had been done, and as far as I know, in a day. And now there's plenty of people that can knock out 3,000 in the morning. A couple of boys in the North Island last year did a dual scan. They were both rocked up at the same farm and set their trailers up next to each other, and away they went. And they did a long day, but they did 14,000 sheep for the day.
Oh, gee whiz. There's money in that. There's money in that. We'll go on to the money side in a minute because that's, again, is an interesting thing. But just going back to that a little bit, some of it's about the timing. I've had scanners on for our flocks, and they go, well, it use either too early or too late. So there's only a certain window when you could scan these animals. I mean, you'll tell me what that window is, maybe. And if they're either side of that, can you say, well, I'll give you a guess at this, and it's not accurate, or how do you guarantee your accuracy, I suppose?
Yeah, so reality is between 45 and 100 days of pregnancy is when they can be accurately scanned. For the majority of sheep, you can go a little bit earlier. You can tell they're pregnant at about day 30, but you don't see twins till about day 45.
Okay.
At day 100, the bones start to calcify and they get increasingly hard to scan, but I do fairly regularly scan sheep over 100 days, particularly at the end of the season. Yeah. And you can't just dive mid-season into a mob of sheep at 110 days of pregnancy. You'll get them wrong. But if you've been doing a whole lot at 90 days and then some at 95 and then some at 99 and then a few at 102 and then 105 and 110, you can sort of work your way up to getting quite accurate at those bigger ages. But on a whole flock basis, we head in around that 90-day mark. So we've that 80 to 100 days, and that gives you the broad window. If you're in early at 80 days, it gives you 35 odd days of mating. Quite accurately.
So you have got time, because that was my other question. Will you have the window to do that? And what about the accuracy then? You're a man with a nerd with figures, self-confessed, or confessed by Michael Blanche anyway, that with figures, do people come back to you and go, you were 96% accurate, or you were only 94% accurate? I mean, you get that feedback?
I'm just trying to think. So who made the quote? Someone said we're just accurate. To be honest, I would say 96% accurate wasn't accurate enough.
Okay.
So we're not perfect, but we aim to be fully accurate. There's quite a range in scanning these days. The early days we just marked dry singles twins, was nice and simple, and then of course people wanted triplets marked, and now of course people want them fetal aged. You want to pick the week they're going to lamb or the 10-day period they're going to lamb. So
I was going to go into
all those things add to accuracy or inaccuracy.
I was going to go into the more than just scanning that you do, well, different types of scan. Let's just talk about the money for a second there. What's the cost of a scanner? You scan in, we'll go on to that, you scan in Scotland and New Zealand. Anywhere else do you scan all around the world?
I've scanned in Mexico once, 10 years ago actually. 10 years ago I was in Mexico.
Price-wise?
So it varies a wee bit. So it depends on what country we're in and what number. But in New Zealand we range from 80 cents. Yeah, 80 cents for a basic scan up to about $1.30. In the UK, we're 85p. So
you're cheaper.
80 to 85p.
What's the New Zealand dollars? What, best part of 2 to the pound still, is it?
Yeah, it's 2 to the pound at the moment. Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's one of those jobs we earn pretty good money, or very good money, but for a very short period of time. So we're only on 8 or 9 weeks in the UK and 2.5 months scanning here. So it's a pretty short window. Yeah.
Okay, that was a question I was going to ask. Is that you know, a lot of scanners that I know are sheep shearers, and they do the scanning in the off period just to keep the money coming around the whole year. So you go back to farming after all. You earn your money and go back to
I go back,
farming, having
back
a beer.
to farming. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. Let's talk numbers. And Daniel, you've been scanning, but 1992, so that's what you've been at the job 30 odd years. Well, how much? To start with, roughly how many sheep per year do you scan and where?
These days, sitting just around the 250,000 sheep a year mark.
Wow.
So, so we'll crack up sometime in Scotland this year. I'll jump over the 7.5 million mark.
7.5 million that you've scanned.
Yeah,
very good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So probably on the Isle of Ewes, actually, which should be an interesting spot to do it.
I've heard you talk about the islands. You seem to love getting out on those islands. Some fairly rugged terrain out there, and some fairly rugged farms, I guess. I mean, not all of them, but you seem to enjoy that island life.
Yeah, no, I love the island life. Sky's kind of my home away from home, and Ewes as well. I'm about 14 days of the year on Skye and 10 days of the year on the Ewes. So I have a trip onto Mull each year as well. And the last few years I've managed to sneak off the bottom of Ewes onto Barra. So that's been an exciting trip. Before I've managed to had the phone call to say that the ferry had been pulled forward from the morning to the evening, and I had 20 minutes to do a 25-minute drive to catch the ferry. I left my bottle of beer sitting on the kitchen table as I rushed out the door to jump in the pickup and head back onto Ewes again.
And there'd be some fairly lively sheep. I don't want to be rude to the island farmers there, but some of those animals wouldn't see people very often. Maybe there'd be some fairly lively animals, or are they all the same all across Scotland?
Probably all the same right across Scotland, to be honest. I do tend to be in the northwest, although I do go as far south as Castle Douglas. But the bulk of my work's the northwest. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of hill ewes, a lot of cheviots, a lot of blackies, a lot of You've seen there's certainly some lively ones.
Have you seen a swing? It seems to be, we chat about it here quite a bit of the time now, a swing a little bit more back towards the cheviot from the blackies, but there must be places where the cheviot won't go.
That's been one of the biggest changes since I've been coming over, is that swing from blackies to cheviots, and in particular the swing from blackie mules to cheviot mules. It's probably 10 years ago I'd never seen a cheviot mule, and probably a third to half the mules I scan now would be cheviot mules.
Yeah, really? Wow,
which is a little ironic, given that the crossing list has sort of come into vogue at the same time.
Yeah,
just when they started breeding a white-faced mule.
Yes, that's true enough. And you'll have a bit of competition. Obviously, you got Cammy Wilson will be one of your oppos, I guess, and I don't know how many. Yep. Well, Cammy's too busy selling hoodies to teenagers now to bother to need to make money.
Yeah. So. I try to catch up with Cammy a wee bit. So Cammy covered, obviously COVID year, I couldn't come to the UK 2021. So Cammy covered quite a bit of my scanning during COVID. That was when I first got to know Cammy. So we're pretty lucky in the scanning world that we, by and large, get on pretty well. There's obviously the old person you don't get on with, but we tend to get on pretty well, and I've got some good friends that are scanners, and quite often stay with other scanners if I'm working in the area. Okay,
do you stick to your own patch, each of you, or do you cross over a little bit, just to your own clients?
We do cross over. Locally here, we have a bit of a laugh. There's a big farm just behind me here, and one day I was heading to work, and I passed one of the other scanners. I was heading out to Banks Peninsula, and I passed one of the other scanners, and I gave him a ring for a chat, and I said, "Oh, where are you heading?" And he said, "I'm heading to Randolph Downs, which is my neighbour." And I said, I'm heading to Kelway Hills, which was his neighbour. So we drove an hour in opposite directions and past tracks. But that's just that's the same in any contracting game.
Yeah, that does sound ironically. That's typical farming, though, isn't it? I mean, that's farmers exactly the same. You'll drive over each other's land to get to your neighbours, wouldn't you? But you mentioned the scanning there, the fetal age and the DNA you get into now and various things. So tell us a little bit more about what's evolved in the, I suppose the technology's moved on as well since you started. Tell us a little bit more about what else you do apart from just pregnancy scanning then.
Yeah, so fetal aging sort of actually rolled around on the back of the work I did in England in 1998. So just breaking ewes down into lambing periods, the same job that a ram harness does.
Okay.
But obviously in New Zealand, particularly in the Fymore flocks, they don't want big ram harness marks all over the ewes, especially a lot of our ewes in New Zealand are winter shorn, so probably half the ewes are scanned in New Zealand are reasonably fresh off shears.
Okay.
So we can mark them. There's various options. Some will just be early, late. Some will be 3 groups, and it's just a way of helping with lambing.
Right, so you'll split them down into what into lambing age groups, something. So these ones are lambing within
so
this
normally,
week.
typically 14-day groups would be the norm. So you might split them into 3 14-day groups, early, middles, late. We do also do a lot of pedigree flocks in New Zealand, or performance recorded flocks in New Zealand use DNA parentage instead of tagging lambs at birth. So it gives the option to be able to multi-side mate.
Right, wait. Just slow that one down a bit. So they're using DNA parentage. So you're involved in that. So what, you're taking samples at the time?
So in a DNA parentage flock, obviously when you're recording weaning weight's a bit of a useless measure if you don't know when the birth date is for the lamb. So for DNA parentage flocks, we then fetal age those ewes. We fetal age them into weekly groups, and we do that using EID tags, but because we can record the information against the EID tag into weekly groups, and that gives us a reference for then. Effectively, it's a predictor of birth date. And then because we've got a predictor of birth date, we can then accurately work out growth rate to weaning. So it's just one of those extra tools for large-scale commercial ram production.
Something you can charge a bit more for as well, I guess, if you're doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty slow, that, and pretty hard on the brain. So, yeah, that comes with a reasonably good... And it's pretty critical to get it accurate as well.
Yeah, sure. You can't offer that service if it's not that accurate, of course. And technology, I said, has moved on. Is the scanner still a scanner? Have they moved on now? Have they got AI involved, maybe?
We haven't got AI involved yet. The probe that we use is largely unchanged since it was first built in the late 70s, early 80s.
Really?
It's got a little bit of thicker shell on it and different alloy in it, and there's a few bits and pieces on the inside changed. But by and large, it was pretty damn well designed right at the start, and it hasn't changed. The scanner, the bit that sits on the table, it's gone from a 28-kilo suitcase with a cathode ray tube down to a 4.5-kilo box with an LED screen. So it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, just a laptop now.
Become a lot more reliable. And they haven't changed much in price either. So they have gone up in the last couple of years since COVID, but prior to that, they hadn't changed much in price in 40 years.
Really? What are you paying for a scanner? What's a scanner worth? 4,000 or 5,000? No, more maybe.
No, I think they're up at £17,000 now.
Oh wow! Okay.
But they sat at £11,000 for about 40 years. So, £11,000 in 1992 was pretty damn expensive, and even in 1982 was expensive, and 1992 it was expensive. But 2020, £11,000 actually wasn't too bad.
Pay for that in the first week, the first day.
Well, it takes a wee while to get through some numbers, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And let's just move on to farming in New Zealand. Yeah, we're primarily our audience here is UK, Scotland based, a lot of it, and USA based as well. But I think we have a lot of listeners in New Zealand. Just talk a little bit about New Zealand. I was told not to get you onto the subject of politics, so we'll try and steer away from that.
Maybe Michael that told you that.
Do the public like the farmers out there? You guys, or do you have to work at that? Are the public perception of farmers the good guys?
I think generally the public perception of farmers is of good guys. I think the media would try to tell you otherwise, but generally the public perception of farmers is pretty good. We are a little bit more removed than we were in the past, but generally the public perception of farmers is pretty good. Yeah.
Okay. Something we have to work at on our side. You'll see that when you come into Scotland, we have to work it all the time to try and keep the public on side when the media are trying to maybe drive them away a little bit. And I suppose we better had mentioned the government. And again, do your government like farmers in the same way that our government here love farmers? Not.
We're pretty lucky at the moment. We tend to buck trends a wee bit. We often vote, when the rest of the world's voting in left-wing governments, we tend to vote in right-wing governments and then go the other way. So at the moment, we've got a sort of centre or centre-right government, and they are pretty good. We had a tough couple of years prior to that. We had a Labour left-wing government, and they definitely didn't like farmers. But things are looking up. Our biggest challenge at the moment is actually carbon trees, with these big polluting companies or carbon companies buying farms and planting them in pine trees from one side to the other. And what that's done is it's driven the price of farms up. So older farmers are tending to often bail out because the money's pretty damn good, and then these and large areas in New Zealand are being devastated by these big areas of trees.
Yeah, and I'm reading this morning, interestingly, in the national press in the UK, that the price of land's starting to fall over here, and there's definitely a discrimination between the good land and the poorer land now. So that poorer land is starting to lose some of that value. So some people get their fingers burnt on that. So that might start slowing down very quickly, maybe.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's just like over here too. It's not just poor land that's going into trees. I was out scanning in Southland this year and drove through some really good land that was planted in trees, and even in Scotland, I've seen it. I went past one block a couple of years ago, and they'd planted barley stubble into carbon trees.
Yeah,
so it was cropping land.
Crazy. We finish. I've been talking to Jock Gibson on a previous podcast, and Jock has been studying beef in Australia and various things that we can learn back here. And the way you guys are more advanced than we are probably in the sheep breeding world in a similar country, I would say, or certainly a similar country to the UK. I think New Zealand would be the nearest country that would be similar to what can we learn from the way you guys are doing what you're doing with regards to breeds, with regards to hybrids and composites? Is it because you're one of the few people that would see both sides of the ocean?
I think there's probably lessons to be learned from both countries, to be honest.
Okay.
The information flow could easily go both ways. New Zealand has taken up performance recording probably better than the UK has. The UK, one of the great UK strengths and possibly one of its weaknesses is its variation in breeds.
Yes.
Like you've got so many breeds over there. Whereas in New Zealand, we're largely dominated by Romneys or Romney type sheep. And even all our composites are Romney and Romney type based. So we've basically taken a Romney and added Finn and Texel predominantly into them to improve meat and improve fecundity. So we're quite lucky in that our general sheep type, excluding the fine wool breeds, is quite uniform. There's not huge variations, whereas in the UK, you've got that massive variation. So it does make some of those breeding decisions a bit more difficult in the UK. For those of us that breed composite type sheep, so I've got shedding composites and I've also got Texel-based composites, we do have a bit more choice in rams. While my Texel composites are largely Texel fin, I can still go out and buy a composite ram that's largely Texel. He might have a few other bits and pieces in him as well, but he'll be largely Texel. But if I was in the UK and I was breeding a hill breed or a crossing breed, I'm very much more restricted on where I can buy rams from. But certainly the UK could benefit largely from some more performance recording on the maternal side. And I think particularly on the hill breeds, I think there's a great opportunity for some of those hill breeds to move forward production-wise quite dramatically. With using modern tools, yeah.
The accuracy of the figures themselves, and again, that's a dispute there's always been in everything with figures. That if you've got to get big databases, big number sets before you can maybe get those figures accurate. Some people will buy them, and other people will just scan for no reason.
Yep. That's true. Like the accuracy is king, and the more data you've got, the better the accuracy is. But we know, like, there's been plenty of studies and lots done. We know how the figures work. Once the figures hit a reasonable degree of accuracy, I saw a good quote the other day. A breeding value and index is still the best predictor of how an animal's progeny will perform, and there isn't anything better. So a low accuracy figure is still better than no figure.
Okay,
yeah.
Does that vary from region to region? We're talking blackies on a hill, and we're talking Suffolk's on low ground. There, we're talking. It's difficult.
Obviously, there's an environmental interaction between genes. You take Suffolks and blackies down into good lowland ground, and the Suffolk's going to outgrow the blackie all day every week. But you take the two breeds into the Scottish Highlands, and the Suffolk won't come back in out of the field. So there is that environmental aspect, and that is actually one of the challenges in the UK that New Zealand doesn't face either. You have got a massive variation in environment from highlands to lowlands, whereas in New Zealand, even our steep, hard hill country is still grass. It's not heather. So there is a little bit less of that environmental play about But within a farm or within an farming environment, then there's you can still breed good sheep that suit the environment and are more productive.
Okay, that's some useful information that I think just getting those comparisons from somebody that sees both sides of it. And just going back to the scanning, then before we wrap up here, Dan. Do we need more scanners? Is there an opportunity for youngsters? I get a lot of youngsters that send me messages on this program all the time. Is there an opportunity? Is somebody going to take over when you retire? Well, you must be near retiring now, surely. Then is there youngsters? Is there a queue? Is somewhere they go to apply to become a scanner?
Yeah, so there's the scanners are actually Scottish made. The IMV scanners was previous to that was BCF. So there is a fairly regular turnover of scanners. Most young scanners now start just by tagging along with an older scanner.
Okay.
And if they've got the will and got the temperament, got the personality to do it, they'll normally train. So I've got a couple of good friends who are in their 20s, and one of just at 30 now. They've been scanning for a few years, and that's effectively how they started. They tagged along with another scanner and slowly learned.
Tagged along, what, sat and watched you, or actually took over the controls and just did a few?
They just sit and watch or work or push sheep up and look at the screen. So there is that. So I started scanning when I was 22, but I would argue these days that 22 is too young. Okay. It's the kind of career that once you've settled with your customers, there's a lot of loyalty that your customers show you, and you have to show that same loyalty back.
Sure, you've no reason to change a scanner. Once you've got your scanner, there's no reason to go to a different one, is it? No, I get that.
So you're sort of stuck to an area because you've got to stay loyal to your customers. Okay. Sharing, for example, you can move around and you can get sharing jobs nearly anywhere, whereas scanning, it's that little bit harder. Okay. So I normally say to people that want to train, just make sure you've got a bit of maturity about it. You're settled. You either own a house or you want to stay in an area, and before you actually start scanning, get out and see the world, learn a little bit. And so mid to late 20s is plenty early enough to get into the scanning game,
it's
my opinion.
Not a nomadic job like this year is. And one final thing, while I've got you there and talking about the youngsters, is there's still opportunities in farming for youngsters in New Zealand. I've had this conversation with the YDP when we were in Australia, when they had to give an argument about there is opportunities all around the world. Get on your bike, get on a plane to some of these youngsters, go to New Zealand, have a mooch around. Is there still chance for youngsters to get in?
Yeah, still chance. No, there's still plenty of opportunities. In fact, in the last 10 or 15 years, I'm starting to see a lot more young people coming through, both from within farming backgrounds and from out with farming. And I think the opportunities are there for those that are keen to get out there. And the world's a small place. It might seem like a lot of money, but an air ticket these days actually is pretty reasonably priced compared to what it was historically. So the ability to get on a plane, go to Australia, go to Britain, go to America, go to Argentina, just go out and see the world. Go farming anywhere. There's farm jobs there. One of my scanning customers from Aquatabui in the Highlands, his daughter, 18-year-old daughter, hopped on a plane last year and headed out to Australia and is now working on an outback station in the Northern Territory, and having the time of her life. So she just met some Australians and over there and got chatting and got a couple of contacts and away she went. There we go. It's doable, yeah. Got mates' sons driving tractors in Western Australia at the moment. I've had John Scott's son's been out in New Zealand, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it's just get up there, go out there and do it.
Brilliant. Well, very wise words from a man with experience there in quite a few areas there. Daniel, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. When are you due back into the UK?
Mid-January, heading back. So
come for the good weather.
2 months. Yeah.
You come for the good weather.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We've actually had a wintry spell here. We're supposedly about to enter summer, but we've had quite a lot of low snow in the last 24 hours and heavy rain. So we've actually got the fire going tonight, first time in a month.
Okay.
So
getting you acclimatised.
Getting me acclimatised. Yeah, had to put the long trousers back on today.
Okay, well, as I said, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you there, Dan. And I'll put a link to your Facebook page on with when this podcast goes live, and you might get a few youngsters coming in there and asking you a few questions if you don't mind.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers, Andy. Thank you.
Top Lines and Tales, sponsored by Harbro.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Top Lines and Tales podcast. And as mentioned there, we are sponsored by Harbro. And if you're thinking about how to boost fertility in your flock this autumn, Harborough's got you covered on that one. They now have offers available on feet and fertility lick buckets, and there's a great science behind that bucket, and there's a great story behind it too about how nutrition at the point of conception can influence the lambs for the rest of their lives. So something which Professor John Robertson introduced to them a while ago. So get in touch with Harborough and find a little bit more about that range of products and their other range of products and how Harborough can help you in your livestock business. And we're also sponsored this week by Pedigree Pro. Pedigree Pro is a sheep management software developed by myself and some partners there for our own flocks. They're aimed at the smaller flocks, but scalable to the larger flocks as well. So if you go to pedigreepro.app and just have a quick look there, see what Pedigree Pro does and how you can set about getting your animals and your lambs recorded, and it integrates with breed societies and various other things. So give that one a look out, please, if you would. And again, thank you for listening to the Top Lines and Tails podcast.
Top Lines and Tails, your favorite livestock show. Top Lines and Tails, we talk to folks who know. Top Lines and Tails, sponsored by Harborough.